Here's what's coming up in episode 197. Jeff C. Carter.
A little bit of a coming of age tale with some kids who are just up against the line of maybe being a little too old to trick or treat. They've put so much energy into making this the best Halloween ever. I heard about this blizzard blowing into New England and basically canceling Halloween. You know, my first thought was, that's so awful. My heart really goes out to these towns full of poor kids. And my second thought was, there's a story there. That was it. That one pure Halloween moment. It was like a spooky painting come to life of an image that I'd never seen before. And it's like those little moments that I live for. And it felt like, you know, my heart was full of Halloween joy. So that's what I did for my last Halloween.
Welcome to the Big Seance Podcast. I'm Patrick Keller of BigSeance.com, and this is a place for an open discussion on all things paranormal, but specifically topics like ghosts and hauntings, paranormal research, spirit communication, psychics and mediums, and life after death. So basically, anything that pops up in my paranormal world. The candles are already lit, so you might as well come on in and join the seance.
If you are one of my favorite listeners, you know, the ones who stick around to the end of the episodes, you're used to hearing me give a special shout out to all of my Patreon Paranerd supporters. I so appreciate every patron, some of whom have supported me for years, even before there was a way to support the show monetarily. Well, I wanted to make sure you knew that every month, all my Patreon supporters, no matter what tier they're in, are invited to a Paranerd Patreon party on Zoom. I think we've done about 4 of these now, and we've had so much fun. I mean, I really do look forward to them. Frequent party attendees have been Melissa, James, Bruce, Jim, Dina, Chris, Sarita, and I know I'm probably forgetting some of you. And something I've been doing is recording these parties. And so I'm thinking about sharing some of the highlights soon. Anyway, if you are a Patreon supporter, our October Paranerd Patreon party is on Friday, October 15th. And you can log into Patreon to get all the details. Not a Patreon member, but you want to be? We'd be glad to have you. Visit patreon.com/big seance. And there's always a link in the show notes. Now let's pour some tea and welcome Jeff C. Carter back to the parlor. Jeff C. Carter is returning to the show today. His previous appearances on the show are episode 173, where we talked about his book, We Bleed Orange and Black, which has been described as a love letter to Halloween. He was also with us in episode 177 with his book, We Bleed Red and Green, which of course is 12 chilling tales for Christmas. And this fall, there's a brand new book called Cold Spell, The Halloween Curse of Winter Hill, which we're going to talk about today. Jeff's stories have been featured in dozens of anthologies, translated for international markets, and adapted for podcasts. His love of Halloween, adventure, and science continue to inspire his horror, action, and science fiction writing. He is a member of the Samhain Society and a contributor for the Creepy Kingdom Network. He lives in Los Angeles with a cat, a dog, a human, and a child. You can learn more about Jeff by visiting his site at jeffccarter.com. Welcome back, Jeff. Dude, it's October.
Happy October. Happy fall. Thank you for having me back. It's a hat trick here in the parlor. There's a divot in this couch over here where I was before.
So let's read the summary of this book. Cold Spell, The Halloween Curse of Winter Hill is a spooky middle grade adventure from author Jeff C. Carter for kids and adults who love Halloween. When a freak blizzard cancels trick-or-treating, based on a true event, actually, a Halloween-obsessed nerd and his friends break the rules and go out only to discover that a terrible curse has befallen their town. Cold Spell, The Halloween Curse of Winter Hill is a fun, fast-paced story of friendship and supernatural adventure that will appeal to fans of Hocus Pocus, Goosebumps, and anyone who believes there is magic just beyond the red and orange veiled woods. This book is packed with dark, whimsical illustrations by Mexican artist Mariana Garcia Pisa. Her charming map of Summer Hill shows a town on the verge of Halloween and all the places that the kids will go as they battle the witch's forces and attempt to break her curse. There is a handy spookabulary, a list of new words that every Halloween lover should know. The book also includes a monster manual featuring the unique creatures that serve the witch, compatible for the D&D, 5e, and Tiny Dungeon RPG systems. And I am just going to pretend like I understood a few of those terms. So that's the book. I am halfway through it. I'm excited to get through the rest of it because before we started recording, Jeff let me in on a couple of secrets of things that are coming up. And I'm like, okay, I can't wait to jump in this weekend to finish it up. So these kids in this story are like fifth graders, right? If I'm doing the math right?
They're somewhere between fifth and sixth.
Okay.
There's an age range, but what I was trying to hit was a little bit of a coming of age tale with some kids who are just up against the line of maybe being a little too old to trick or treat.
Yeah.
And they've put so much energy into making this the best Halloween ever. And every night for the past few years, Halloween has always landed on a school night. And it's finally landed on a Friday night. And they're going to trick or treat all night. They've got a map of all the houses with all the best candy. They've got strategies for double dipping, where they're going to dump the candy off, where they're going to get picked up by their parents, how they can maximize their candy intake. And when this freak blizzard hits and shuts down the town, one of our characters, Jim, realizes that next year is a leap year. And so Halloween is going to go back to being on weeknights for another 4 years.
And that's depressing. I've been there.
Yeah. So he's had 4 years of bad Halloweens and he has 4 years of bad Halloweens coming up. And so it all comes down to this night and it gets canceled by this snowstorm. And his friends and his parents are all sort of hinting that he might be too old to trick or treat, which means that's it. That's an end to childhood Halloween for him. So he has like everything invested. He's been working for months making his costumes. And when the snowstorm hits, he has to remake all the costumes for himself and his friends. So yeah, there's a lot riding on this one.
Yeah. And I remember talking to you the first time we talked. I'm always looking for spooky type things to do with my students who are this age. And so I am super pumped to be covering a book like this on the podcast, especially since I know I do have some of my students checking the podcast out. I think it would be cool. It'd be nice to also see this in our library. This character, Jim, I can relate to him in so many ways, not even just as a Halloween nerd, but just in some of the characteristics of Jim. And I am only assuming that there is some Jim in you, sir.
It would have been weird if I had named the character Jeff, because I am Jeff, but Jim and I are pretty much the same. With the first draft of this story, I took a look at myself and played up some of my maybe less charming characteristics. And then with the revision, I went back and I was like, all right, let's really crank up these qualities. So on a bad day, I'm just as petty and petulant and controlling as Jim is.
I kept thinking back as I'm reading, all these moments of him being controlling and super obsessed and excited about something and maybe being a little more there than the other peeps around him are. I kept thinking about my family when we had our paranormal investigation team. I was like so serious and focused, and they had training and we had handbooks, and my family the whole time is like, dude, this is just fun for us, right? It's a family activity. I know, but we're going to do this and here I want to do. Dude, like, chill out. We're here. You're a teacher. We get you're a teacher. We're not your students. Chill out. That's what I kept, seeing and remembering all these experiences. I'm like, I am so Jim right now.
I remember a very, very early memory. I must have been under 10. And I remember, so we had a furnished basement, just like in the book. And I remember it was October and I wanted to be spooky. And so I got flashlights for my family. And I was like, we're going to have a haunted house. And so we turned off the lights. This is just impromptu play, right? The stakes could not be lower. So I turn off the lights and we're all walking around with flashlights and holding them under our chins. And, they're just walking around going, woo. And I start crying because they're not doing it right. I don't know what I expected. I don't know how great this impromptu haunted house could have been. But yeah, there's definitely that seed of Jim in my personality.
This story has been rolling around in your head for a while, and you've had this kind of under your belt because last year you were kind of telling us about this story. And as we were talking, last year we were talking about the pandemic and how scary it was. And, we weren't sure what Halloween was going to look like. And I think it looked different in different places. And, I think a lot of people aren't sure what Halloween, even this year, the next year, is going to look like. Can you tell us kind of where this came from and what made you decide it was time?
I think I heard a piece on the radio, or I read an article. I can't remember which, but this is about something that's there was a news item, which is a freak snowstorm hit Massachusetts, and I'm from New England, and I'd been living in LA for quite some time by this point. But I heard about this blizzard blowing into New England and basically canceling Halloween. And, my first thought was, that's so awful. My heart really goes out to these towns full of poor kids. And my second thought was, there's a story there. How weird is it to get all pumped up to go trick-or-treating and then a blizzard just comes in and dumps snow on your town? And how weird must it be to have all your Halloween decorations out, all your skeletons and pumpkins, and then all of a sudden they're all buried under snow. It's just too weird. So I thought it would be a good sort of quasi-natural or supernatural turn for a story.
And, I'm really finding myself falling in love with these characters, and they're, each one of them have their own little traits that I see in my own students. And then, like I said, I see in my own life growing up as a nerd of many different kinds.
A nerd of many stripes.
And, as you're talking about your haunted house, like, yep, we had some haunted houses as well, that type of thing. And I may not have focused on, like every kid gets super excited about something until they change their mind and forget about it.
Mm.
So I never really focused on it long, but when I was focused on it, I didn't do anything halfway. Like, there was the time that I decided I was going to build a bridge that went from the hill, like we had a sledding hill. You talked about a sledding hill in your book.
Really?
We had an awesome, sledding hill that the neighbors would come to next to our house. And about an acre away was a lake. So from that hill, like an acre away, and I decided I was going to make a bridge. I was going to build a bridge, like a straight up bridge, like you would need 200 burly guys from a road construction crew to come build this bridge. But I was going to build the bridge.
Chain gang to come and fell some trees and split some logs and drive some spikes.
Yes. And I started digging, and my dad came out of the house and he's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Duh, I am building a bridge. It's going to go all the way over there. We're going to be able to drive across the lake." What is in a kid's mind? Like what? I mean, in a way, that's awesome because there's completely pure, like no doubt about it in their mind that they can do it. At the same time, it's like, oh my God, you really thought you were going to build a bridge.
Yeah, there's the passion and the belief that something can happen and zero understanding of logistics or consequences or supply chains or effort required. That's sort of what makes childhood, such a magical time. And then those soap bubbles get punctured one by one.
Yeah. So Jeff, you have in this book so many, there's lots of play on words, and I'm sure there's a technical term for all of these fabulous words that these kids come up with.
Portmanteau.
Thank you. You were a genius. You also must be a writer. Highween and lowween, and they also have ultraween. They have like snowtober. Is that what it was? Or like snocktober or something?
Oxnober.
Oxnober.
Yeah.
Yes. Things like that. And I love those. They're so serious. They have it all planned out and detailed. And you, and I guess it says it in the description of the book that there's a spookabulary. Tell us about this spookabulary.
So the kids have this habit of mashing words together to explain new things. And, I'm guilty of this. My friends and I still to this day do this. And because so much of this book is based on the town I grew up in, the sledding hill in the backyard, the graveyard out in the woods, all the things we used to love to do around Halloween, my friends growing up, I invested it with their personalities and some of my friends now, I had to have them speak like the way we spoke. And I think there's I hope there's a lot of good jokes to be found and mined out of that. But, Highween and Lowween is my attempt to explain which are the best possible Halloween nights. And obviously, any time that Halloween falls on a Friday or a Saturday is a Highween. Because you can have the most elaborate costume, spend all the time you want getting into that costume.
Mm-hmm.
You can trick or treat all night long. You can hang out after. You don't have to go to school the next day. And this is contrasted with the Lowweens, where Halloween is on a weeknight and you don't have much time to get into your costume. You got to cut off your trick-or-treating early. And the next day, when you've just gone from the zenith of magic and wonder, where the whole world is supernatural and the veil between worlds is thin, and then you got to get up early the next day and go back to school.
And drive your teachers crazy because you're on a sugar high.
Exactly. So that's the Lowween. And if you look at a calendar, most days of the week are Lowweens. And I'll tell you, the worst of the worst Lowween is in the middle of a week. When you have Halloween on a Wednesday or a Thursday, no one really gets that geared up or goes out and parties that late in the middle of a week. And people foolishly try to split the Halloween festivities between the weekend before, which feels half-baked, and the weekend after, which is, trying to celebrate Halloween like 3 days after it's over. It doesn't feel right, man.
So I'm wondering if maybe we should do some research on how many people are making therapy appointments on those middle of the week Halloween years and how much money the therapists are making.
I tried to envision a calendar that could track, and Jim actually has this in the book. He has this like revolving wheel of years combined with a calendar, so you can actually calculate when Halloween is on, a Highween or a Lowween, but also leap years. Every 5th year is a leap year, and that actually you skip a day. So sometimes you've got a Highween coming up, but then it's leap year and you get knocked back into a cycle of Lowweens. And I never say exactly what year the story is set, but I did plan it out so that these kids are stuck in a cycle of Lowweens and they're about to hit a Highween and they're going to be going back into that cycle of Lowweens.
This group they're in, they call it the Candy Club.
Yeah.
They mention in the book that, they have to have a good trick-or-treating Halloween because that's the only thing that keeps them going as a club for the rest of the year. And they have a candy tax.
That's right.
There was one scene where they're calculating how much candy they have to have and get from everybody and make a plan because, of course, some of that's going to be the candy tax that we have. So let's talk about that because I thought that was the cutest idea ever. And I'm sure that has some true real life history.
Before I fell in with my group of friends in 3rd grade, who I'm still friends with to this day, I was so young that I was just friends with whoever lived nearby. And so I was friends with a kid down the street, and he was an only child. And so he had this huge playroom, which as the youngest of 4, I was like, oh my God, you've got a room in your house just for like stuff and toys. And he opened up the closet and he had a garbage bag, like a 1,000-gallon garbage bag full of candy. And he just got out a Smartie and closed up the garbage bag. And I was like, what are you doing? Oh my God. And I turned into a cartoon wolf. My eyes are bugging out of my head. I'm freaking out. And I was like, we have to eat all this candy because, I was in a kind of household where if you saw candy, you ate it because like I said, youngest of 4, you don't know where you're going to get it again. I've always had a big sweet tooth. And he was in a kind of house where he didn't have to share candy with anyone. And he could just have a giant garbage bag full of candy. And it was like, meh, it wasn't that excited about it. So I came up with the brilliant idea of the Candy Club. Hey, I like candy. You have a giant garbage bag full of candy. Why don't we have a club where I eat your candy? So Candy Club was formed. And I don't know whose idea it was to come up with Candy Club code names, but his code name was Bucktooth Fever. And mine was Pig Out.
Oh.
And there was a 3rd member to Candy Club. And for the life of me, I cannot remember what his code name was.
Oh, man, that's too bad. My sister and some of my cousins, when we were about that same age, I think we lived the same life, just in different parts of the country a little bit.
Yeah.
But we had the Relic Club, which was our last name spelled backwards.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so I was Kirtap. My sister was Esac. My other 2 cousins were Reffinage and Allrack. So that was their first names backwards. And we had a tax that we had when we met. We didn't call it a tax, but we had a tin can. And every time we came, you had to put so many quarters or whatever in there.
Did you have to walk backwards in a circle or?
No. See, I was not that kind of nerd then, but had I been, we would have been having seances all up in there and everything, man. It would have been cool.
That sounds amazing. And it rings so true to the cultishness. We were saying, you were talking about building a bridge. You just got the idea, but that obsessive quality that kids have. It's that cultishness, let's form a secret club with secret knowledge, with secret names. I love it. And I totally buy it. the whole candy tax thing is that after my friends and I would go trick-or-treating, we would dump out all our candy and then we would trade with each other. And instead of the black market, we called it the lavender market. And we would trade candy with each other. And that was like a big part of our post trick-or-treating festivities. And so I sort of combined that with the candy club idea in that, they need to have a bountiful harvest to renew the candy club bag that they conserve all year long.
Because in order to still be a club, you have to survive and have candy, or we won't make it.
Yeah, because they can't buy their own candy.
And one of the kids even said, "Oh, well, but even before we start, I'll just dump the first bowl of my parents' candy in there."
Right. Well, because you can go to the grocery store and buy candy like an animal, but this is Halloween candy. This is candy they have sought out, that they have earned. It's been blessed by Halloween moonlight, and it tastes better, man. I don't care what anyone tells me. Halloween candy just tastes better.
So what other kinds of things from the book that you're willing to tell us? Because, I realize you can't tell us all the things, but what other things from this book are true?
I mean, so much of it is based on my town. So I grew up on a street called Summerhill Road. And so I sort of built that into the mythology of the town. And I just named the town Summerhill, which was, in the mythology of this town, originally called Winter Hill. And it was a much, harsher, more drastic place that eventually got softened and nicened up into Summerhill. But there was a Revolutionary War cemetery in the woods by my house. And not like across the street, but, back then when you would walk a mile through the woods and it was no big deal, we had a summer camp up the street from us. And when summer camp wasn't in session, it was just like the best place to go and run around, this closed down summer camp. And they had a lake, and behind the lake, like deep down, smothered in this old growth forest, was a crumbling Revolutionary War cemetery. And it's not on any maps. Like if you look at a map of my town, it's, you can find references to it, but I just always thought it was so crazy that these like 200 or 300-year-old gravestones are just out there in the woods, just kind of waiting, all the epitaphs have been worn away. And so like little pieces like that, of that sort of New England flavor that I work into the book. We'd been talking about this backyard sledding, but my house was on a hill, which was next to like a very, very large hill. And the sledding was just epic. Like the speeds you could achieve, the damage you could do going down these hills was so awesome. And I remember we never had a blizzard in October, but my birthday is in late December. And probably one of the best birthdays I ever had was my 15th birthday. My friends came over and we just were sledding in the backyard, and my parents put on the porch lights and we just stayed out late. So we were just like out all night sledding. And it was like so glorious that, when I needed to have that first sort of false victory point in the story where the snowstorm hits and the characters are worried because they think Halloween is going to be ruined. And then they remake their Halloween costumes and they figure, okay, we can still trick or treat now that we have these winter costumes. And so they celebrate with this epic day of sledding. That's my 15th birthday right there.
I told you I'm about halfway through, and you told me that pretty much where I stopped is where things are starting to get real in this story. And we can deduce just from the title, Cold Spell, the Halloween Curse of Winter Hill. Where does this curse come into play? Because I know there's another true story there.
Yeah, sometimes when you're doing make-em-ups and you're just, remixing things and you think it's all pure invention, and then you do a little research and you're like, oh, damn, this is all true. And, my idea was that before the Salem witch trial, there was this other witch trial in New England. I grew up in Connecticut, and I was looking into Connecticut history, and it turns out that the Connecticut witch trials predated the Salem witch trials by 30 years. And I even have like a connection between this coven in this town and a coven in Iceland, because the winter I was trying to work in this sort of Icelandic mythology, as a backstory for my antagonist and the monsters and stuff like that. And I hop over, into my research, and I'm looking at Iceland, and they had this crazy witch panic and all these witch trials in Iceland at the same exact time. So I thought that was really interesting. And the name for the witch in my book actually comes from the one woman that was executed in Iceland during this witch panic. All the other people that were persecuted and executed in Iceland were all men, because up until that time, magic was just an accepted part of life in Iceland. And so all the practitioners of magic were men. So they were the ones being persecuted.
I was excited to tell you that the first time you were here, I told you that I had never been to Salem, and that was on my bucket list. And it ended up, listeners will know because I put an episode out about it, but it ended up just by accident. I was with my husband and his family and visiting New England, and we went to Kennebunkport, Maine. And I'm not even, my husband makes those plans. I don't ever have to use my brain on trips, and I just go, and I get kind of overwhelmed with those things. And somebody, I remember on the Facebook group in the Big Seance Parlor, was like, well, you're going to Salem, right? And I was just like, what? Salem is nearby? Like, not even, like, first of all, I didn't do very well in geography either. So I had no concept of like how close I was to Salem. And I loved it. It was cool to see all of that stuff, but it was not at all what I expected. Now, you being, in New England or growing up in New England, it probably seems to you, I imagine, like you're just soaking in it, like it's all around. The history is all around. And is that the case?
Yeah, I mean, the town I'm from is pretty old. I think the oldest building in our town is from like the 1500s.
Wow, that's crazy.
It looks like it's melting because like it wasn't built on a foundation. And so all the walls, I mean, literally it's so old that the glass itself in the windows has settled. Because as we all know, glass is actually a liquid. It's not a solid. And given enough centuries, the glass starts to warp. And so that always like stuck out my memory of like this super, super old building and how it's melting into the ground. But New England just has all these stone walls and all this crazy old history. And, I don't know if you ever had like pioneer days or stuff like that, but we had like a little one-room schoolhouse building. It's not where we went to school, but we would go there for field trips and, see people making candles and spinning yarn and all the wonderful things you do on those sort of pioneer experiences. But, there's a lot of colonial influence where I grew up.
My hometown growing up, we were a Civil War battle town, Civil War battle town. So we had battle reenactments. And, we would have homes tours because there were a lot of Victorian antebellum homes. And
so when they did the Civil War reenactments, did you ever run out and pick up the little packs of gunpowder?
No, I never did. I would have been too afraid to do that.
That was our favorite thing. After the battle, we would all run out onto the battlefield. And there were these wads of newspaper that were wrapped up like hard candies. And they contained these big fat wads of black powder. And you light them on fire and they explode. And pretty soon, the adults got wise to what we were doing. And so the battle would end. Someone would blow a bugle. And then all of a sudden, like, they'd be like, all right, stop. Because all the kids would like rush out to get the unspent charges of black powder. End of an era.
we were different boys. While you were doing that, I was, taking dance lessons. So I don't think I was.
But were you square dancing?
I wasn't square dancing. No, I don't know how to square dance, but
I remember when they taught square dancing as like
in PE,
as a lesson in PE, but something about do-si-do and swing your partner around. But yeah, I haven't kept up with it.
I want to give you the opportunity to share anything else that you feel you want to about the book, but then also, like, I definitely plan on, when I purchase my own book for the shelving ceremony, purchasing another one, and I want to deliver this to my school library and say, here you go. What do you think about putting this on the shelves for the nerds like me? But tell everybody else, like, when it's available, if it's available now, and where they can get it and in what form.
Thank you so much. I'm really flattered. I'd be honored if you would introduce it into the school library. The book, it's PG rated. It's supernatural and thrilling, but no one is killed except for maybe one witch. But she comes back later. It's fine. It's fine. There's no blood. There's no swearing. There's no gratuitous violence or anything. So I kept that in mind. I really just wanted it to be sort of fun, light, magical romp. The book is out now, but it is actually on sale for free, the low price of free, from October 1st to October 5th. And it's available as an ebook and a paperback on Amazon. And I'm just about done working with my narrator on the production of the audiobook. So that'll probably be up in a week or so.
Excellent. I remember in maybe the last two episodes, because the first two episodes you were here weren't that far apart from each other. But I remember us speculating what Halloween was going to be like.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to remember what exactly it was like here. I think I was so bummed that it wasn't like a normal year. And because I was being a school teacher in the last 2 years has been really interesting, right? So I was really, really tired. And because things weren't going my way, I decided I just wasn't going to play at all. So I remember it was just like candy on the doorstep. I'm watching a movie, like that kind of thing. What was your Halloween like last year after we ended up talking? Do you remember that far?
I do, because it's one of the only memories I formed, in the last 24 months. Most things were shut down or socially distanced or just canceled. So I did go to like 2 drive-through Halloween themed events last year. And those were like fine. But, that was just because there was an utter vacuum of Halloweenergy. There was no Halloween energy to harvest. And at like the 11th hour, I found out about this Halloween festival that was happening way, way, way out in the sticks at this pumpkin patch. And so it was a corn maze and pumpkin patch sort of Halloween festival. And they had adapted a haunted house trail to be all outdoors. And so that actually made it somewhat feasible to do even during, the height of COVID. And everyone was masked. And so we drove out there under this like gorgeous crushed velvet neon orange sunset. And we pulled into this dirt parking lot and we got out and went into the corn maze. And it was so awesome. We legitimately got lost in this corn maze. And we eventually found our way out and over to the haunted trail section. And they were doing the best they could, but, everyone was sort of rolling with the punches and, it was a so-so haunted house experience. But I remember tapping my friend Ryan on the shoulder and pointing out, not at the monsters or the props or the set design, but there was several rows of corn where people were snaking around, to queue up for the haunted house. And because of the lights in the distance and the fog machines, all we saw were black stalks of corn hovering mist and the dripping, stretching shadows of human figures rising and falling through the mist. And it was like, that was it. That one pure Halloween moment. It was like a spooky painting come to life of an image that I'd never seen before. And it's like those little moments that I live for. And it felt like, my heart was full of Halloween joy. So that's what I did for my last Halloween.
I am very happy for you that you got that experience. Since you're a Jim from this book, I mean, I would be really sad for you if you didn't get some kind of cool experience, and listening to you describe it makes me jealous that I wasn't there for it. Was that in California?
It was in California. People don't realize that so much of California is agricultural. And if you drive a fair ways out of the city proper, there's lots of farms and corn mazes and pumpkin patches and things like that you can do. And there's really nothing better on Halloween.
Awesome. It's really been a bummer. We have had for years around here this amazing pumpkin patch. It was Rombach's Pumpkin Patch.
Is that one of your cousin's backwards names?
No, it's a legit family. And, I didn't grow up around here, but I've been around here for about 20 years. And I know that it's been, at least a few generations of this family that at one time would have been in the middle of nowhere. But of course, it's like, suburbia now, and things have exploded. And it was really cool. And I looked forward every year to going and having the experience and getting pumpkin butter, or going and seeing all the decorations, seeing the kids. And a couple of years ago, it closed down. Everything's building up around it, and there's big shopping malls around it and everything. And I don't know if that had much to do with it. And I've really been bummed, because I know that there are probably pumpkin patches around here, but that was the one that I knew about, and it was close by, and that was a tradition for us.
Yeah.
And there isn't it. And the last couple of years, they've already been kind of bummer Halloweens, but the last couple of years, I'm like back to being the grocery store pumpkin person.
Yeah.
And I went to the grocery store last week, and I got so excited because they really were cool. There were some pretty nice sized pumpkins, orange pumpkins, in the middle of the store, but they also had these bright yellow, like mustard yellow pumpkins that looked so cool, and they were perfect. There were no flaws. And I, had no food in the house, so I went there to really stock up on food, but I had just rolled into this grocery store, and now my cart is full of 4 of these giant pumpkins. And so everything else, I'm just stuffing around it.
Sounds like a gourd slide.
Yes, I've got these pumpkins on my porch. And as soon as I put them up there and back up and take a picture of these pumpkins, I'm like, oh, damn, they look like Reese's Pieces. They do. They're like an orange pumpkin, a yellow pumpkin, an orange pumpkin, a yellow pumpkin. And they kind of do. And I haven't decided if they're cool or what.
I say lean into it, and, maybe get an M&M pumpkin, just make it a theme. That's really exciting. When that first pumpkin, all September, I'm kind of cruising through the different stores and just waiting. All right, who's going to be the first? And when I see that big cardboard bin full of pumpkins, like, I legitimately get excited. And I will divulge this without shame, but whenever I see a bin of pumpkins, I always go over and give one a thump. I got to do it. Got to go touch one. It just makes me happy.
It's just a ritual.
Yeah.
And see, I'm excited because I'm like, I don't know that I've ever seen a yellow pumpkin carved. And I can't wait to see. How dorky is that? Like, I'm like, is the inside still orange? The outside's going to be yellow. That's going to look a little weird.
I remember the first time I was able to get my hands on fully green pumpkins. So not pumpkins that were unripened, but just pumpkins that were stayed green. And I was super excited. And I actually carved mine into a chupacabra, which is like a sort of a lizard cryptid. And I was totally unprepared for how much denser those green pumpkins were going to be. And the flesh inside was like this neon bright orange. And it was so interesting.
Weird.
You're in for a treat.
I've heard, and I don't know if this is just blown out of proportion or not, but because of people craving a really good Halloween so badly, with having some funk years in a row, that all of these stores, whether it be Spirit Halloween or Target or wherever department stores where you would go get cool Halloween things, have been selling out like super, super, super early. But then I also know that, there could be some, manufacturing bottlenecks because of
shortages
COVID too. Yeah. So what have you been hearing about that? What do you think that's about?
I've heard the similar rumors. And I think, like so many phenomena, it is a combination of factors. I think there is a pent up desire to splurge and celebrate. So people are going buck wild and trying to make up for missing Halloween last year. Stores, are having supply chain issues because of COVID. They're also having staff shortages, so they're not, restocking or shipping as quickly. And also, last year was such a down year for Halloween merch. They may not have produced as much stuff this year, and they got to start clearing the shelves for Christmas, baby. Christmas creep in the house.
Christmas creep. What was it in that first episode? Salad in your
fudge in your salad.
Fudge in your salad. And then you were like, oh, but wait a minute. The salad isn't a main course. So really, it's not exactly like that. So
no, my qualm with that analogy was that Halloween ain't no salad.
Right.
Halloween is the main course. It's the steak. It's the delicious dessert.
Yeah. What do you have, you and the family, what plans do you have this year? Or do you know? I have no idea what to expect.
So we moved to this very, very large apartment complex, and as confusing as it can be to navigate the warren of walkways in this Ewok village that we live in now, apparently it's awesome for Halloween because the kids can all go trick-or-treating with their friends without having to worry about cars. And so people decorate their doors and give out candy, and it's like a neighborhood in a fishbowl sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to that because I have done the trick-or-treating where you take the kid out to like the cool neighborhood, and driving in LA is hard enough.
Mm-hmm.
Parking is bad enough. When you're doing it at night where everyone is converging on these particularly quaint, rich neighborhoods with the great Victorian houses that go all out for Halloween, it's a parking nightmare. And you've also mixing in kids with poor visibility, kids who have masks on running around at night while 100,000 frustrated Angelinos are trying to park. And regular traffic is just trying to speed through. And it's not a very chill way to spend your Halloween. So I'm really looking forward to this like purified trick-or-treating experience.
Yeah, seems like kind of chill, like you're at home and you can relax but still have the experience too. I miss our last neighborhood on Halloween. I love my neighborhood now, but it was just this enormous long street of attached townhomes that were really cute and sidewalks just going straight down. And it was, if you were a kid that just wanted a lot of bang for your buck, it was the place because it was door, 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 and you just keep going down. And that was fun because I remember everybody, at least in our block, we all moved out to the end of the sidewalk, in front of our townhome, and we each had our own little shtick, with the table or the apple cider. And it was just like, you just let them come down and you did like it was a carnival or something, like we were,
like
barkers.
A block party or a carnival. Yeah, that sounds awesome. Unfortunately, because of the layout of our Ewok village, you can't really decorate because everyone has like high fences around their I mean, I'm making it sound like a maximum security, like Rikers Island or something. That's not it. It's not a high security situation. It's just sort of the way they developed in this part of LA, very high density. So there's not, there aren't like yards that you can decorate, et cetera, et cetera. So inside there's lots of trees and green space and it's very lovely, but I wonder how that's going to work. Because from the street, you may think there's nothing Halloween-y going on at all. But inside, I think there's going to be a lot of really stoked kids in costumes running around door to door with their friends. And I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm really excited trying to imagine Ewok Village. That to me is, that's cool.
Yeah, if you had asked me in like March of this year, I would have said, COVID's going to be in the bag.
Mm-hmm.
Like by summer, everyone's going to be vaccinated and this is going to be the greatest Halloween ever. And then by the time summer rolled around, they're like, okay, Delta variant. And I was like, all right, change of plans. I guess we're just going to be stuck with social distancing and canceling events and drive-through haunts and things like that. And then now we're in October and it's kind of like we were talking about before the show, which is like, we're kind of distancing, kind of not. We kind of care, we kind of don't. And it seems like people are determined to go trick-or-treating. And I saw just today that the CDC, was giving the green light to trick-or-treating. So,
oh, cool. That's perfect timing for this. I didn't even know that.
Yeah. Last year, they were against it, and then they walked it back right away. This year, they're all for it. But, if the last few years have taught us anything, is that things can change quickly.
Right. And I don't remember us talking about variants a year ago.
No, we weren't.
And it's like, what other variant is peeking its head over the corner? I'm not even sure I could be confident that Halloween's going to be absolutely normal in 2 years from now. It's like, are we going to be this? Is this going to be forever? And I know it's not, but it's so tiring. It's been a long time, yo.
It's been a long time. It's been exhausting. And especially for people like us who use Halloween to recharge, their batteries for the year, basically. I was talking to my friends about this, sort of future casting, what Halloween's going to look like. And not to be all doom and gloom, but things continue to get hotter.
Yeah.
And there may come a day 10 or 20 years from now where the idea of putting on a sweater and drinking hot cider in October seems insane.
Especially where you are.
Yes. Where the state is on fire from basically the beginning of summer until the, December, basically. So I was thinking like, instead of the theme parks getting all decked out for Halloween, maybe we're going to have water parks that switch over for Halloween. And it's going to be all, Creature from the Black Lagoon themed, or you're going to have little Jason popping out of Camp Crystal Lake. We got to adapt for the times.
Just so people don't die.
Just so people don't die of heat stroke. Yeah.
Wow.
And then a couple of generations after that, when you go trick-or-treating, it's going to be for little cups of fresh drinking water.
Right. So are there other things coming up, other projects that you want to promote, and tell us where we can find you other than jeffccarter.com?
I'm getting ready to record our Halloween Spooktacular over on my podcast, the Six Demon Bag Podcast.
That's right. I forgot about that.
At sixdemonbagpodcast.com. One of my stories is going to appear on Spook U's Halloween Festival. The audiobook narrator that I have, Matthew Weisgerber, he's going to contribute his vocal talents, and I'm contributing one of my stories to this awesome streaming Halloween show that's hosted by a puppet. And the puppet edits together all this voiceover narration of original fiction for Halloween. I have a horror-themed Lovecraftian VR escape room game coming out.
Oh my gosh, for real?
Yeah.
Didn't expect that one.
Yeah, no. I don't know if you're familiar with Venn diagrams, but it's basically, you have a bunch of different subjects or areas, and then you draw circles around them, and where they all overlap, that's the sweet spot in the Venn diagram. And in this like project, which has been, in stealth, as people say, for a long time, I'm just the writer on it. The hard work is the actual coding and the 3D modeling and all the VR stuff. That's been going on for a couple of years. I got some role-playing game stuff in the works. Hopefully I'll make some announcements over that soon, but more to come. The work never stops over here at jeffccarter.com.
Of course. Well, I hope you have a super spooktacular Halloween. I hope you go all out on whatever it is. And I hope the new Ewok neighborhood is like, I hope you post pictures.
I promise you, I will go all out to the best of my ability. I might send you some pics, and I want to hear how it goes with your yellow pumpkins.
Oh, that's right. I saw a really cool meme that someone shared of an enormous pumpkin with a white pumpkin inside with an eyeball painted on it. I don't know if you've seen that one. And I was like, oh my gosh, that would be so cool. And I showed it to my husband and he went, no. So I guess we're not doing the eyeball, but Reese's Pieces and maybe M&Ms are probably doable.
I also try to overdo myself with the pumpkins every year. And 1 year I got a white pumpkin. We were talking about different colored pumpkins, and I carved it into a skull. And then I put it inside an orange pumpkin. And then I had a hand like ripping the face off the orange pumpkin. So all the pumpkin guts were dripping out as you saw the pumpkin skull inside.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, layering pumpkins is an ancient and deadly art. And I encourage you to start as soon as possible. As we've said, over the last, few years have been bummers. And, for various reasons, we've had to cancel our annual pumpkin carving party. Pumpkin Palooza is what we call it. We've canceled the last good run of parties, and when we moved to Ewok Village, we saw they had a little event space, and one of the first things I did was put the money down, and I was like, "All right, 6 months from now, we are having Pumpkin Palooza," and so in 2 weeks, hopefully, I'll be sitting down with a few of my closest friends for Pumpkin Palooza 11.
That's awesome. And that sounds about right. That's about the perfect time to start. Do you time it like before? I always do like about a week before so that Halloween hits and they aren't too shriveled, but they're still looking pretty cool.
I don't time it for the longevity of the jack-o'-lantern. I time it so that anyone who wants to do something fun in the last 2 weeks of October, there's no scheduling conflict.
Got it. Okay.
Always planning these things out in advance.
Well, I'm learning about you just from learning about the character Jim in the book, so that totally makes sense. Well, you rock, Jeff. We can't wait to see what the future projects are, and can't wait to have you on again for other future Halloween episodes.
If I can get it together to put something spooky out for Christmas, I will let you know.
Okay.
Maybe we can touch base again. But if there is a sequel to Cold Spell, The Halloween Curse of Winter Hill, it may involve some of our favorite creepy cast of characters from all those Christmas legends we were talking about last time.
Okay. Well, people need to study up then. Go hit those back episodes. 173, I think I said, and 177. Those are you can go to bigseance.com/173 or 177 and hear those episodes and be ready for the next visit. Thank you, sir.
All right. Can't wait. Happy Halloween. And I hope you have a spooktacular month.
Thank you to the following super paranerds who support the show at patreon.com/bigseance. Daryl, Anne-Marie Sullivan, Genesis, Natalie N., Kim Robb, Josiel Lorenzo, Susan Davey, and Amy Park Gedicke. My supporters at the parlor guest level, who can be found at bigseance.com/parlorguests, are Linda of ShimmeringMoons.com, Ann Rekovich of OzParatech.com, Denise Sia of Raven Haunts Paranormal, Janae Michaels of Grey House Tarot and Farm Artifacts, Chelsea from Cheers with Chelsea, Sarita Cockerham, Christine Rath Selhi, Mitchell Coombs, Christine Ferrens, Mindy Kintop, Hope Battaglia, Cassie Keller, Melissa Armour, Diane Rax, Nettie, Dina DeCastro of Dina DeCastro Astrology, Bruce Williams, Christopher Kohler, Lana and John of Carbon Lilies, Jim Budd, David Rubenstein, and Norman and Linda Keller. That sound you just heard was the Above and Beyond There's Not Even a Category for Your Level of Support fireworks display. Because I have 6 awesome listeners who support the show at the $10 level. Peggy Hagan, Glenna Becker, Steve Skinner, Kevin Gilbert, AJ Meredith, and James Wilfong. So thank you, Peggy, Glenna, Steve, Kevin, AJ, and James, and thank you, Paranerds. For show notes, including links to anything we may have mentioned in this episode, visit bigseance.com. And you can continue the discussion and hang out with a great community of Paranerds by joining us in the Big Seance Parlor on Facebook. Want to hear your voice in a future episode? Go to bigseance.com/feedback to learn how. Thank you so much for listening. Unfortunately, it's time to blow the candles out, but we'll see you and light them again next time.